So we ask ourselves, where will the consumer be when they're looking for something to spark connection, to reduce loneliness, or to bring lightness to care? And that will often lead us back to wellness or caregiving spaces. But I'd love to advocate for cross-merchandising strategies that don't make the consumer have to choose between fun and function. Because the reality is they want both.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Tuned Out Conversation series. We are talking about building brands and driving sales while the whole world is screaming. In this series, we're talking with leaders from retail and CPG who are doing a particularly fantastic job of understanding older adults and engaging with them. I'm Dana Keilman. I'm with Morning Light Strategy, which is a consumer insights and strategy firm. We work primarily on understanding older adults, helping our clients as they're working to better understand consumer targets and messaging, very much understanding needs and wants and self-perceptions as they're also working toward new product development and innovation of all kinds. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Celica Costantino. Celica has deep experience in the toy industry, so this is going to be a lot of fun today. She was with Hasbro for almost 18 years, followed by Funko, and currently she's with Ageless Innovation as the VP of Retail Sales. Celica, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and then also about Ageless Innovation and the Joy for All brands?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Really happy and excited to be here with you talking about this older adult demographic and how we're chasing the challenges that we're facing. So here at Ageless Innovation, our purpose is to reimagine how we positively live and age together through the power of play, right? So our Joy for All brand launched under Hasbro in 2015. We spun out and founded Ageless Innovation in 2018, which enabled us to really focus on bringing joy and comfort to older adults versus the traditional Hasbro demographic of younger age groups, through products that offer companionship and encourage social connections. Products like our line of award-winning robotic companion pets, which are designed to reduce feelings of loneliness, provide comfort. We've also introduced a suite of ageless games, which in collaboration with Hasbro, are classic games reimagined with accessibility features that support play across generations and abilities. Our products can be found on joyforall.com, national retailers like Amazon, Walmart, and Target.com. We also have a growing number of healthcare and community partners across the country, as well as abroad. We're actually in over 30 countries, and we are chipping away at now almost 1 million pets adopted worldwide.
That is fantastic. And I didn't know that about the 1 million pets.
Yeah, we're getting there.
That's amazing. I know you said that you spun off from Hasbro and then in 2018 really went full force on your own. When did the pets line start? That's 1 million pets over roughly how many years?
The pets line started in 2015. I mean, we've grown it from a couple of cats to now 3 cats, 2 pups, 2 birds. So it started in 2015. So the brand itself is 10 years old this year. So yay. But Ageless Innovation is, we just celebrated our 7th anniversary a couple months ago.
That is fantastic. That really is tremendous growth.
Thank you.
So that, one of the things that really distinguishes Ageless Innovation and the Joy for All brand itself is the focus on joy. And I'll say when I personally first got it really serious about focusing in the field of older adults, trying to really understand more about what companies were doing in this space, I attended a conference called On Aging back in 2023. And one of the booths that really stuck out to me and that I remembered for going forward was the Ageless Innovation booth. And it is so filled with joy, which sounds a little trite maybe when I sit here and say it, but it's true. So many products in this space are focused on very functional needs rather than what the consumer wants, what the older adult wants. How did you How did you end up in the space focusing on joy?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it, right? There is this massive gap between products that older adults need, so that's like essentials for day-to-day living, and then products that enrich their day-to-day living. So I'll give you the quick backstory of how we came into this space, which is it started a little over 10 years ago. Ted Fisher, who is our CEO and co-founder, he was working at Hasbro at the time, leading a new innovation team, and they were tasked with pretty much looking for new or different distribution channels, leveraging as Hasbro's vast asset library, maybe potentially repurposing some of those assets for different use cases that hadn't been considered in the past. So the aha moment came when he and his team were kind of deep diving into Hasbro's consumer insights, specifically related to the brand For Real Friends, which I don't know if you've heard of. For Real Friends was a line of animatronic toys designed for young girls. And the creatures were usually pretty fantastical. So it was like dragons and unicorns, or animals that you wouldn't typically consider as pets. So like lions and tigers and bears, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So in looking through the insights and reading through a lot of the reviews for the items under this brand, his team discovered that, nearly 20% of those purchasers weren't buying for the intended audience. They were buying for an aging loved ones. So the reviews really shed light on, like I said, the gap between products offering companionship and comfort to this aging demographic. So we dove into the aging space, and like you said, most of the product there is clinical, utilitarian, sometimes sadly kind of depressing. Everything is designed to solve a problem, which obviously is a necessity. But somewhere along the way, play, joy, and connection became lost, right? So I think that's really unfortunate because they don't stop being important things as you age. If anything, they become more critical as you age.
Yeah.
So we here are firm believers that play is a basic human need. It's not a want, it is a need. And to paint that picture, let's use Hasbro's portfolio as an example. They have a wide variety of toys and games for all the ages and stages through childhood, through young adult, maybe even kidult. So as a baby, you're probably playing with like Poppin' Pals or Busy Gears, right? And these toys are products that are designed with intention. They're rooted in early learning development. They are not clinical products, but they are still designed to encourage cognitive development and motor skills, right? Fast forward a few years, you probably aged up into strategy games, complex puzzles, but you're always playing and you're always exercising your cognitive muscles and engaging socially. Fast forward a little bit more, now you're aging into the adult space and you older adult demographic, and suddenly you find that your options for ways to exercise your cognitive and physical abilities through play are greatly limited, right? So the why of it is because we wanted to reframe aging to be more inclusive of joyful and emotional connections through the power of play.
I love it. I really love it. And what you said is so true. There becomes more and more of a focus on just satisfying the immediate utilitarian need without thinking about the emotional component of it. And I think that's kind of how we ended up in the reality of so many products being made for older adults that are just beige, generic looking, kind of, they're not anything that's inspirational, truly. And when you have the pets and you have the games, those really are. I'd love to ask you a little bit, and I'll give an example, but for people who don't know the line of board games, and as we were talking about fun and play, a couple of examples of how those have been modified. And I'll just start with, oh, you have a good one right there you can show us.
You want props? I think that's
I was going to mention Trivial Pursuit Generations, which I bought, and I've got kids and grandparents, and we took Trivial Pursuit Generations out to visit my in-laws, and it was really fun because everyone could pick their generation at the start of the game, and you can either pick the generation that you were naturally born into, or you could pick any generation you want to. But the point of it is you're getting questions that are tailored more for what people of that generation will know about. So my in-laws picked boomers and they got a lot of questions about history, but it was fun and exciting for them. It was history, but it was also pop culture in the 50s and 60s. My kids got a lot of Gen Z pop culture questions about what's going on today. And it's very satisfying when you feel like you can relate to the questions, you can answer them, and it levels the playing field rather than everybody getting, questions that they may or may not have any idea what's going on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do to modify the classic games, yes, the content is one of them, but from a tactile standpoint, this is like the classic Trivial Pursuit card. So it's like really tiny font. Like I can hardly read it myself. And the different colors represent the different categories for the trivia questions. And instead of doing the different categories on one card, we created different colored cards based on those categories, which allowed us to make a bigger card with bigger font, higher contrast. And as you can see, the questions here are greatest generation, Boomer, Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z. So like you said, the ability to, especially as a sandwich generation, to take this game, play it with my kids, play it with my parents, it really brings everyone together. And that's really the focus and the purpose of it. I was in a retail store with my daughter and her friend's mom. And, she was talking about going on a road trip and picked up this card game, trivia game, and it was 80s and 90s. And the mom like really wanted to play this game. And she's like, I'm going to get this for the road trip. But wait, she's like, my daughter's not going to know any of this. So what's the point? And I'm like, I'm going to get you Trivial Pursuit generation. And it was perfect.
Yeah, that is perfect. That's perfect. And thank you for having props there so we could see it. Because they're
always within reach.
It's a good example. And going back to what you talked about with Ted Fisher, looking through the reviews for for real pets and realizing that so many, about a fifth of them were being bought for older adults. And there's a real need there. Both of those, the example that you just showed with Trivial Pursuit, and then also the story about reading reviews and understanding how people are really using those once they buy them. Thank you for helping me show that power of consumer understanding, because you've taken, Trivial Pursuit, it's fun. So you tap into that emotion, that personal satisfaction, but you've also really figured out what are those tactical needs with the contrast and the colors. It's very easy to understand. So
yeah, it's something that we'll continue to iterate on and evolve, right? So this Trivial Pursuit game, it's a big box. It comes with the board game, which is a quad fold, but it's heavy, it's sizely, right? So taking into consideration how our consumers are playing, we are launching within the next month. It's an expansion pack, if you will, but this is just a comp package. But it's still Trivial Pursuit Generations, new content, kind of like an expansion pack of cards that you can play with the original game, but you can also take it on the go. You can play this in the car. You can play it, when you're visiting grandma. You can play it when you're, whenever. So this I'm really excited about. Lower price point, easily accessible, easy to take. So that is launching in about 3 weeks.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. And you're right. The usage occasions for that could be very different. So you've tapped into a new need and a new occasion there. We talked about your experience shopping with a friend, and I talked a little bit about taking Trivial Pursuit Generations to my in-laws. Do you have any other memorable stories from customers or any feedback that you've gotten?
Yeah. It's cool. We receive a steady stream of testimonials from customers and caregivers alike. And they could be emails, sometimes they're handwritten letters. We even get recipes every now and again, and that's super sweet. But is there anything more quintessential grandma than getting a handwritten recipe in the mail, like a thank you for what we were able to provide her? All of the stories that come through are super heartwarming. They're powerful. One that stays with me came from a caregiver whose mother had been nonverbal for a couple of years. And after being introduced to her first Joy for All companion pet cat, and you probably guess it, she started speaking to the cat. So she was talking to the cat and she started engaging with it in ways that her family hadn't seen in a really long time. So that was like a really emotional turning point for them. Another story, one that I experienced firsthand, is was tied to one of our close partners who runs this program called Pets for Vets. So through this initiative, they raise funds to purchase companion pets and then organize donation drops at veteran homes throughout the country. So I had the privilege of attending one of those events at a local veterans home here in Rhode Island. And one of the veterans there immediately came out and like claimed his orange tabby cat, named him Franklin, and which is the cat that he had years ago. So I'll never forget the way he described it. He said having Franklin with him was gave him a way to bring a piece of the past back home. And I think that was super sweet. And he said something else that I wrote it down because I absolutely loved it. He said, "It can be difficult to explain, but obvious to anyone who knows how to love."
Oh,
Oh my God.
wow.
Right.
Wow.
It's that sentiment, right? It's that idea of reconnecting with joyful, meaningful memories from your life. That's at the core of what we do. And it's these types of stories that not only validate our mission, but inspire us and fuel our passion to keep innovating and keep creating new products that make a real difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you couldn't be making a bigger difference than that. And just tapping into what that means to people. Pets are so meaningful. Yeah. Are there any myths or misperceptions about older adults? This is a very broad, general question, but anything that comes to mind that you'd like to correct?
I feel like there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I would say I myself was guilty of falling into these myths as well until I started, working closer with the demographic as a whole. I'd say probably one of the biggest myths is that older adults aren't willing to try new things, especially when it comes to technology or products that feel outside of their routine. But the reality is that they're increasingly connected. They're using social platforms, they're shopping online, and they're eager to try new things. So what we see time and again is this deep desire to stay connected. They want to learn, they want to play, they want to be a part of whatever is happening around them, just as much as the younger groups do. Case in point, we exhibit annually at New York Toy Fair, which is the second largest toy show in the world. And obviously, when we're walking up and down the aisles and looking at booths, we're surrounded by toys and games, the majority of which are designed for younger demographics. So we needed a way to really differentiate ourselves from the masses and stand out as product supporting older adults. Now, mind you, when we exhibit at healthcare conferences, we might be next to a company selling pill organizers or vitamin and supplements. So in those types of environments, we tend to stand out. But at New Toy Fair, I feel like we have to put a little extra pizzazz into our approach and our strategy. So at this year's show, this past March, we had this really colorful, massive backdrop that boldly read "Grandma's Got Game." And then next to those huge letters was this like larger than life image of a vibrant and sassy, like 80-year-old grandma. And then in case that wasn't enough, we tapped into the local communities and we asked local grandmas to come and volunteer their time at our booth. So effectively embodying our target demographic in the most authentic way possible. You had to see this. You had to see They showed up with unmatched energy, super enthusiastic. They were chatting up everyone, people walking by. They were chatting up those kind of exhibiting around us. And they dove headfirst into the new product launches. So they were at the tables playing our games. And when we're prepping for this space and understanding that we have grandmas coming in for like 4-hour shifts, I'm like, we need chairs, we need water, we need to make sure that we have everything they need. Sit. I sat. They didn't sit there
Yeah.
walking through the floor and talking to everybody. So but I think my absolute favorite part of it was in terms of connection. So they came in pairs and they were there for 4-hour shifts. The ones who were paired together became friends. So
Oh,
they exchanged numbers, they shared rides back home. And even weeks after the show, I would get text messages from them. Oh, I'm hooking someone up on a blind date. She needs to get out more. Or this one is helping the other with interior design. And I'm like, I just love you guys. And
yeah.
really, they're not looking to fade into the background.
Yeah.
They want the time, and it's time that we recognized that and gave them the attention and support they needed. Yeah, they showed up to have fun. It was great.
Ah, that is, oh, I love it. I really love it. You know, that entire story, something that Nicole Muncie is my co-founder for Morning Light Strategy, something that the two of us talk about all the time is the fact that people come in and they say, oh, once people hit 50, they don't want to try new things. They're stuck in their ways. And older adults are just, they just don't want to try new things. And what you're describing is very much what we talk about all the time, is that nobody's really focusing on how to give them things that are new and fresh and fun and really relevant to them. So you found a way to do that with things that are traditionally youth oriented. That would be board games and robotic pets.
You showed up just like anyone else would.
Yeah, you give them the opportunity, and it's human nature. You want to be part of things. You want to be needed. You want to contribute, and giving people that opportunity is a big deal.
Yes,
It's at the heart of just understanding people as people instead of just an age.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit, the older adult market, as we think about products and services that are really being developed with the older adult in mind. It is a fast growing market, but it's still incredibly underserved. So we know that the buying power of older adults in the US and then globally as well is increasing significantly. The number of older adults are growing faster than any other age group. And that's true whether we think about older adults as age 50 plus or 65 plus or even older. That is the fastest growing age group globally. So also, we know that older adults as a whole, not everybody, but on average, have more disposable income than those who are younger. So why do you think retailers are not putting more focus on serving this population?
I think in many cases it comes down to outdated assumptions,
Yeah.
and maybe a lack of urgency. Buyers are still, I think, buying into the myth that 18 to mid 30-year-olds are the most valuable consumer. But like you said, the data tells a very different story. Older adults, like you said, not only have more disposable income on average, but they're also brand loyal and they're constantly looking for new and different ways to enrich their lives, whether that's through wellness or entertainment or connection. But I think the problem is that the audience is often invisible to the people making the actual self-space decisions, or the idea of creating this curated space is so nuanced that they're not really sure where to start. There really isn't an older adult aisle. So when
Mhm.
space is dedicated for this group, they tend to focus on the clinical need, the functional need. So there is a massive opportunity here to shift that narrative, and subsequently the product mix to more joy and more playfulness, with the understanding, though, that there are health benefits that go along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. There are. And I'll say I heard a rumor. I'm not going to attribute it to any retailer at all because I haven't been able to verify anything here. But heard a rumor that there is a retailer considering starting a senior hour, which kind of, you think back to COVID, and a lot of stores did have an hour. They opened an hour early for older adults, I think usually defined as 65 plus, but they would open an hour early, giving people who are a little bit more physically vulnerable the opportunity to shop in a less crowded store.
I love that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, I like our local malls would open an hour early to allow for older adults to come in and walk and kind of
Yes.
get their exercise in. And now that you mention it, I feel like, man, that was a wasted commerce opportunity. Like you could have been
100%.
selling stuff and they would have been buying.
Yes.
So the idea of that coming back full circle and maximizing that opportunity to be able to get product in front of them that is meaningful to them, that's fantastic. Sign me up.
I know completely. I 100% agree. And the idea that you could have that hour where they could go in, browse, shop as they wanted to, but it would be an opportunity for the vendors, such as yourself, or people with, let's say, age adaptive clothing, all the age tech that's made for the home. People could set up booths and have one-on-one conversations with anyone interested in stopping by and learning a little bit more. And it would be so, gosh, I mean, it would be well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a dream.
It is a dream. It is. Let's cross our fingers. We'll throw it out there in the universe. Maybe it'll happen. So Ageless Innovation clearly has a very unique set of products. So not only are your products specific to older adults, but they're light and they're playful. They could be stocked in the toy section, but as we were talking about, there's really no, does that really fit for what you're offering? They could also potentially be in the wellness section if you wanted to think about it that way. But how do you approach that discussion with your retail partners about where to shelve your products for Ageless Innovation?
That's definitely an age-old question. It's something we talk about often. Like you said, our products are joyful, they're interactive, they're fun, which makes them feel at home in the toy section. But they also serve a deep emotional and social purpose. Studies have shown that older adults who suffer from loneliness and social isolation have at least a 40% increased risk of developing dementia. And several years ago, after we launched our line of companion pets, we published our Joy for All Impact and Benefits white paper, which encapsulates the findings of, I think it was 10 plus studies on the Joy for All companion pets and the proven benefits, which are, to name a few, reduced anxiety, reduced depression, increased cognitive activity, increased feelings of purpose. I think you mentioned purpose earlier. And all of that, right, ties into health and wellness and aging. So therein lies the conundrum. And I think what we decided to do is our approach is to lead with the outcome versus the category per se, especially since the category doesn't really exist in like a physical space standpoint. So we ask ourselves, where will the consumer be when they're looking for something to spark connection, to reduce loneliness, or to bring lightness to care? And that will often lead us back to wellness or caregiving spaces. But I'd love to advocate for cross-merchandising strategies that don't make the consumer have to choose between fun and function. Because the reality is they want both, right? And so I think the shelving strategy needs to meet that nuance.
Yeah, I really love that. Don't make the consumer choose between fun and function. 100%.
Function.
Yes. Yeah, there's no reason that you can't have something highly functional that is not also fun. You can absolutely do that. So what are some of those complexities associated with products for older adults, particularly, as you think about talking to retailers? What are some of the hangups or the things that you find yourself explaining with merchandising and messaging and who the purchaser is versus the end user, all those kinds of things?
Yeah, there's a lot of complexities. But to start, I'd say one of the biggest is that the older adult market is incredibly diverse. You are talking about people who span decades of life with varying degrees of independence, of cognitive or physical abilities, and different interests. So that first of all, makes product positioning super tricky. Um,
Hmm.
and then another challenge is that, like you said, the purchaser and the end user is often not the same person. So in many cases, it's the caregiver making the purchase, which means retailers and marketers need to consider how to speak to both parties in one single moment. Whether you're passing by a product on a shelf or you're looking at a product detail page on the computer or your phone, your message needs to resonate with two different personas, which isn't easy to do. Um, and then lastly, I'd say many retailers still associate, like we keep going back to this, still associate products for older adults with functional needs. So walkers and pill organizers, incontinence, things that solve a problem but don't spark joy.
Yeah.
So when you bring a product to market that's rooted in play, fun, and emotional connection, you're going to be left with the question of where it fits. And honestly, I think at this point in time, it seems like we're all collectively still trying to figure that out. Um, it's, also kind of an exciting time because I feel like we're at this precipice of like a huge merchandising movement or something,
Mm.
which can be exciting to be a part of.
I agree. I have thought that for a couple of years now that we are right on the brink.
Yeah, we're almost there. We get there.
We're almost there. I do believe it though. I really do. I mean, the more and more I'm in this space, I the enthusiasm and excitement around it is accelerating for sure. I'm going to ask you a question about messaging, but a little bit of kind of setup to the question so you see where I'm coming from. So you mentioned the end user and the buyer, the person actually making the purchase, could be two different people, and they often are. So the buyer might be that adult child, it could be a spouse, a friend, another family member. They might be providing some level of care for the end user, or they may just want to spark some joy and give them something fun. Um, so caregivers often don't think of themselves as caregivers. It's not a word that people use to describe themselves most of the time. Um, they describe themselves based on the relationship. So I'm a daughter or a friend. Um, Now, when you need to communicate with both that buyer and also with the end user when they're different people, how do you organize that in your messaging? How do you approach it?
It's an interesting dynamic. It's an important dynamic. It is also a delicate dynamic, right? As far as how we go to market with that, because of the delicate nature of it, we spend a lot of time talking through the messaging, even testing what resonates and what doesn't, what may become offensive or what, people don't identify as. So we're constantly walking this line, it feels like, between honoring the dignity and independence of older adults while also acknowledging that many purchases are being made by someone else who loves them and wants to support them and support their care.
Yeah.
So one is probably going to be a little bit more forthcoming about low vision or something like that versus
Hmm.
the end user who doesn't want to admit to it, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So some of the messaging in the aging space can feel clinical, sometimes even patronizing. So we're very intentional about using inclusive and empowering language that doesn't feed into the stigma of aging, but brings light and excitement to it, like you said. And at the same time, we're speaking directly to those family members or friends by highlighting the emotional value of our product. Whether they identify as a caregiver or not, we know that the product that we're offering resonates with their desire to bring comfort and happiness to someone they love. So essentially, every message is designed to say that this is something that one would be proud to give, and also something one would be delighted to receive. So
Hmm.
the messaging then becomes more focused on the product and the benefits of the product versus trying to like, oh, this is targeting this person. You can go through, analysis paralysis and sit at a table for hours. At the end of the day, it's just really important that our benefits are coming through to both the purchaser and the end user.
Hmm. And I think you've done really well with maintaining that tone. You're talking about the benefits with that emotional connection so that you are reinforcing light and fun, and people can see that. It's not something that's a second layer behind the functional, it's right up front. Yeah. Um, all right. So if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about how retailers approach older consumers, where would you start? What would you change?
Did you just become my fairy godmother? The magic wand. Well, I feel like we were talking about a dream earlier. So, if I had a magic wand, I'd want retailers to stop defining older adults solely by their age or their limitations, right?
Yeah.
They are, like I said, incredibly diverse in this population, their interests, their abilities, their lifestyles, purchasing behaviors, even. But so many retail strategies still bucket them into this narrow functional category, assuming that they're only shopping for medical devices, mobility aids, or vitamins, which, mind you, are in different areas of the store.
Yeah.
Right? So if I could wave a magic wand, I would ask retailers to start thinking about older adults in the same way that they do about younger demographics, and then build that space we were talking about. Build this dedicated section designed specifically for older adults, a space that, blends wellness and joy and beauty and function and fashion even. You talked about adaptive clothing earlier. A space that isn't just about needs, but it's about celebrating passions and a vibrant lifestyle. Make it exciting. I feel like millennials, present company included, will talk about losing themselves for hours in a Target or a Home Goods, right? So you're just browsing and imagining, and you're building this cart of aspirations. So just imagine how lovely that experience would be for older adults. Maybe not hours, but like the opportunity to just explore and browse and find products that you didn't even know you needed, because we do it all the time. I could honestly go on and on about this. This is an opportunity for signage and storytelling. This is the area where you can really activate against Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day, really bringing gift giving there. And because all of this stuff is together, from a retailer's perspective, you are effectively increasing your average basket size.
Mm-hmm.
We magic wand. Let's go. Minneapolis, Bentonville. I'm talking to you guys. Let's go.
100%. 100%. And that's, when you think about something that is that exciting, and, I go shopping with my Gen Z daughter, and she gets so excited in that way. To see that captured, why shouldn't older adults get to have that exact same experience and go through and find, the soap dispenser that, for whatever reasons, just really fun and brings them joy. It doesn't have to be difficult stuff.
Absolutely. And you think about the baby section in Target, it's probably, it has like nursery and decor in there too. So it's got like furniture in there, but minus the furniture, you can truncate that a little bit, but it's got everything: soup to nuts, prenatal to postnatal, diapers, like feeding, like utensils and plates and bottles. Like it's got everything in one space, toys, like everything. So you just have to turn around and say, oh, I could use that, and add it to cart. Come on.
Yeah. Too, I think we're talking about sparking the joy for the older adults, but I will say that the adult children often have a really hard time figuring out what can they give that would be fun. It's not something that's just sort of boring. You don't want another stereotypical kind of present. If you had a lot of opportunities, to choose from things that are relevant and tailored for helping people to age in place, things that would be fun for the home, but are also functional in some way. The Joy for All Pets, the board games, things like this. These are wonderful gift ideas, and help people who are even under 50 figure out what they can give.
Yeah. It would be, instead of going to the baby or maternity section, is going to the joyfully aging section or something cute and fun. I don't know, but like, to your point, it's going to have the toys and the games, coloring books and journals. It'll have, easy to grasp kitchen tools. It'll have, compression socks or adaptive clothing, skincare for mature skin, like everything, all in encapsulated space.
Yeah.
Have a vision. I can see it.
Totally. Yes. I think, that people really need to tap into your vision right there and bring this to life. Yeah. So what can you think of in terms of information or data? What proof points do you think that retailers need before they would seriously consider creating a space like that for older adults? What would help them to realize the power of that kind of area in the store?
Gumption.
Yeah. Just
Um,
take the,
yeah,
yeah,
retailers are data driven and
yeah,
they inherently risk averse, which, rightfully so, I get it. So the proof points they need, I would say, fall into a few categories. First, they need clear demographic trends, right? Older adults are the fastest growing age group globally and hold the greatest share of disposable income. And that's not opinion, that's fact. There was a
right.
article a couple weeks ago, I think, about the population in the US. I think it was like 6 states where the population over 65 has now exceeded those under 18, 18 and under.
Yep,
That's a trend that's going to continue and likely at an accelerated rate. Um,
yep,
and second, they need purchasing behavior data that shows that older adults are not only spending, but they're spending in a wider range of categories than they're often given credit for, from wellness, obviously, but like also technology and entertainment. So again, all the more reasons to bring the product together into one space, increasing
yeah,
basket size. And third, I think herein lies the crux and the catch-22 is that they need proven performance data from either an in-store pilot or online sales to show that when you build for this demographic thoughtfully, it performs. And I say it's a catch-22 because for many of the national retailers, in order to secure in-store space, you have to have strong e-com sales,
mm,
which can be difficult for a number of reasons. But if we can bring these data points together, I think they'll have to see that this is a growth category that deserves its own space and attention. And those who jump on it earlier are the ones who are going to win.
yeah, 100% absolutely will win. And it's your, so by 2030, the prediction is that in the US as a whole, the over 65 population will outnumber the under 18, which has never happened in world history. So think
20,
yeah,
right?
that's right around the
I'm
corner.
like, it's so far off. That's literally 5 years away.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've read 2030, 2032,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like, but it is right around the corner.
Yes.
We really are on the brink of a massive demographic shift in that way, which will affect consumer and retail sales. Absolutely. And like you said, the first to figure it out will get such a head start. I think a lot of it has to do with just letting people know what's out there. And right now, people, when you spend time and you really understand what has been developed and is available to help people age in place and to bring joy, people are surprised because they just don't know what's there. And again, I'll go back to it's not only older adults buying these items, but it's people who want to give them a gift or help them. So there are a lot of people who are looking for these types of things. All right. What has been your experience with getting your message out in the online sales environment? You mentioned that a lot of retailers want to see the e-com proof points before they really bring something in store. So
Yeah.
what would you say has been difficult to communicate? Maybe nothing, but I think overall, as we talk about products for older adults, there really is a lack of awareness of what's out there. And when there's some awareness, there's often confusion about what the product really is or how it works and what it
Right.
does.
Um, Online is both an incredible opportunity, but like you said, it can be very challenging. On the one hand, it's where discovery happens, especially for caregivers who are just, searching for something to help a loved one. But then the challenge is also in translating the emotional experience of our products into a digital format. So a Joy for All pet or an ageless game is something you feel, like you see it spark a memory, you feel the connection, you hear the laugh. And that's hard to replicate on a 2D detailed page with bullet points and photos.
Yeah.
And it's also really important that our products are accurately represented and that the benefits and use cases or need states that they solve for are quickly and apparently obvious, like really fast. So in addition to poring over every detail of every asset, we lean into short form videos. We customer testimonials, and
Mm-hmm.
we're starting to share out and empower more user-generated content. So
Okay.
we share out in our social channels, but also driving back to purchase. Still, I feel like most e-commerce platforms aren't designed to tell nuanced stories. So especially when your purchaser and your end user are two different people, it's a constant work in progress. But so far, I'd say we're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I'm just going to ask you one more question. We can wrap up. But how would you describe the future of products for older adults? What do you think? We've talked about being on the precipice. What do you think is next?
That's a big question. The future of older adults, of products for older adults, I'd say is vibrant and diverse. I feel like my word of the day is vibrant.
Yeah.
And as this demographic continues to grow in size, influence, and purchasing power, we'll inevitably see that shift, right? From purely functional products to those that are emotional, social, and aspirational. And I think that's the future of it right there. Older adults are living longer, they're staying engaged, and they're demanding more from the products that they choose to bring into their lives. Age tech, I think, will play a critical role in enabling connection, independence, and well-being through smarter, more intuitive solutions. So it's not just about aging gracefully anymore. It's about aging playfully because we want to stay lively and vibrant, right? So the brands that understand that, I think, will lead the wave of innovation over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. I think at the heart of it, and this goes back to everything we've just talked about, at the heart of it is looking at older adults as real people, not as just a demographic monolith that, they'll make do with whatever's available.
Right.
But understanding the opportunity there and really connecting on that emotional level to bring play and joy and fun and just light into people's lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Celica, thank you so much. This has been a really fun conversation, and there's so much here. I've jotted down several notes as we've been talking. There's, you've got a lot of thoughts, and I would just leave this by saying I hope that there are retailers who will hear this and come want to talk to you, because
I hope so.
there's a lot here. There is so much opportunity.
A ton of opportunity to unpack for sure.
Yeah. Good.
Thank
you.
This is great.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So this has been the Tuned Out Conversation series, and my guest today has been Celica Costantino. Thank you very much, and we will talk again soon.